Well, great news. Our client went through the registration process, created an account on this service, paid for both the domain name and the hosting. So now we have a live domain name and live hosting. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, I just want to show you that just because we paid for it doesn't mean it's instantly available. That's one thing. Well, the other thing you guys should know is we haven't really created anything yet to see, but what we might want to do is actually type in the domain name. That's what you should get. You should get some sort of a message it's saying coming soon. This is an interesting thing to know. When your domain name is parked somewhere, right? So we got the hosting, and the domain name right now resides on the WHOIS servers. And any of the stuff that's inside here is all ads. That's on the splash page, the coming soon page. If you get people to come in here and actually click through on this stuff, there's actually ad revenue that gets generated from these things. And one of the real old dastardly schemes that some people would do is they would buy domain names, and then they would sit there, yeah, you can guess, right, either manually or automatically find ways to click through on all those ads and crank up the revenue, and then they got smart and started blocking it. But I'm just saying, so this is what we call a domain that's parked. So it's parked at the company that we used to purchase it. Now we are going to go back now to wherever the heck we were. Which tab was I on here? Here we are. All right, and we're going to go through, and we know we're going to use WordPress, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and go explore a little bit of what we have here in terms of tools, and do a WordPress installation, because the beauty of it is that it's a painfully simple process. Now, my online students who haven't made these types of choices yet for this class, they might end up doing their development work on the school servers, in which case they'll probably want to look at the videos that are in this WordPress folder that shows you how to create the database, download, upload the software, make all the configuration settings and changes, and manually install WordPress. It's actually it's a process, and it's not the instant process you're about to see here. Most big hosting companies have an automated process for installing lots of different software, and WordPress is not the only one. WordPress is just the most popular. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the site, and you can see they have these tools here, and this one I'm going to guess is the one that's going to try to make us to pay for that email account, so I'm not going to press on it. And this one is probably the one that tries to get you to pay for the tool that helps you build websites through drag and drop, which is not what we're doing either. So we don't want to really choose each one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come up here and try to go to this particular account, and you'll see a very quick little listing here of the services that are purchased. So the first thing that we'll see is that romanbathsoaps.com is listed under domains, and there's a control panel that goes with that, and I'm going to click on it. We're not really going to make any changes here at this point because it should all be pretty automatic. We bought the domain name and the hosting from the same firm. So the beauty of that is that we don't have to do any configurations to make the domain name attached to the hosting. Because it's possible to buy your domain name in one spot and host it somewhere else. And if you did that, then we would come to this control panel to start making changes to these settings, most notably the name servers, which are the machines that point you to the right machine once you have the domain name. This is all going to be on the same system, so it's not a consideration we have to make. But these are records that sometimes need to be adjusted in certain scenarios. And then sometimes you'll also add certain types of applications that might require settings inside of here. And those are just things that you should know. So I'm just bringing it up here so that you can see the control panel, and now I'm going to head back. And now we're going to look at the web hosting. And you can see that they have our new account, and we're going to go ahead and manage it. I think North America is probably logical. And this is a spot where once again, I'm going to let my student come up here and set these things because this is really her purview here. So I'm going to pause the video while she puts this information in. Okay, so we successfully created a login for the hosting control panel. It's called cPanel. And after we finished, this screen came up, right? And then the inclination is yes, because we're going to build a WordPress website. But I've been cautioning you guys, I don't want to choose it at this point. I want to get into the control panel to show you where you can do it from there. That's the reason for it. And I also have this fear that if I choose it from here, it might lock me out of certain control panel features. So I'm always cautious. So I'm going to say no, not now. Finish. Now what this should do upon completion is it should put us into the control panel itself. So we're being patient here so that we can get to the point where we can use it. So we're being patient. Very patient. In the category of hurry up and wait. An error occurred. Please try your request again.
Oh crap, maybe I didn't do.
Yeah, somebody's got a hack attack on us.
I was refreshing a lot on the address.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody was denial of service attack right from our own classroom.
No, I just wanted to see what the update was going to be, but I think that might have thrown the error.
All right. But it doesn't matter because we are at the point right now where we can actually manage the site, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just click manage, and it should take us to the control panel anyhow. All right. And then what you're seeing here is what is considered probably like the de facto standard in the open source world for control panels on hosting companies. It is a product called cPanel, and it's the most common product that you see out there. Some hosts will give you this software with their own CSS on top of it. In other words, they skin it themselves. They just go through and they write a different CSS file and it'll look different, but it's all the same tools and it is the same product. And I would think here that we also have, well, there's no additional theme here, but you have the ability to change themes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit just to get us a little more readable on the screen. And I'm just going to very slowly kind of scan down the page and show you all the tools that are available in the control panel. So first little section there on the right. File Manager. And it looks like the place where you can access your images. Notice we can set up FTP accounts. That might be something you want to do. You can set up backups of your website. These are independent of backups that we might set up from within WordPress. WordPress has the capability of having its own backup plugins that you can add. Here we would have access to our databases, including some of the tools you guys are probably used to, like PHP My Admin. But what these tools here allow us to do, and I don't know if you guys saw that from when we were signing up, but you have the ability to have up to 10 separate databases. So if you wanted to create your own database for whatever reason, you could load it up here independent of the website. That's another reason why you don't want to choose WordPress hosting, because it locks you out of those features, right?
How about SSH?
That's a thing that's really kind of a good question. Now somebody called out, what about SSH?
There it is.
And there it is. Although from my experiences, it's not as directly powerful as you might get on some systems. It is locked down, obviously, but you do have the capability of getting to the command line.
You got to create the keys first.
Yeah, and that's a one step at a time process. But let's go back up to the top and just kind of keep scrolling through. Notice that featured applications. So all the products that you see here, and frankly, these are the big content management systems that are out there. I was telling some of the students when I was younger, getting into this game, the hot CMS was Joomla by far. That was like the one that was happening. Drupal was pretty big too. And just so you realize, those aren't the only applications available on this system. So these are applications that are available with very simple little clicks. It automatically configures any databases that are needed, and a whole bunch of other things. Now what's kind of neat about this is some of these will act as entire website engines. There's wiki engines, there's other CMSs, a lot of them that are like forums. For example, like a lot of you that maybe go online, like I very often like go look for like weird stuff for like fixing my old vehicles, and I end up on these websites that are forums. Most of them are powered by PHP BB or one of the other forum tools that you see here. And you'll see the format if you install that. So if you wanted to play with these, you have that capability, right? And that's just for, this is community software. Here's content management systems. Yeah, there's more than one. There's more than one, folks. And all of them have different types of capabilities and abilities. Some are complex, some are pretty simple. E-commerce stuff, yep, built right in. Galleries, surveys, and in some cases you can install actually multiple products off of the same domain depending on the kind of product it is. So you got to be kind of careful what you select. We already have a pretty clear vision in mind as to what we're going to do, which is to install WordPress, and we are going to come back in a little bit and do that. The other thing that you can control here are aspects of your domains. So like if you had add-on domains, and in this case I don't think this feature will work because we bought a single economy site, but if you had the deluxe level of service, this is a spot where you could add on additional websites. Also the ability to add subdomains. Subdomains are the first part of a web address. So in this case we're going to be romanbathsoaps.com, and if she decided to have an essential oils site, she could have essentialoils.romanbathsoaps.com, and that would be a subdomain. And it's just a mapping system is really what it is. The next section is where you come in and you can create your email accounts. So once you know what email accounts you want to have, you just come in, you create them, set up the passwords, and all the other little things that you might want to use. Metrics, this is kind of a useful area. All good hosts provide this. And this is basically a service where we can see who's visited the site and gather statistics on it. And this is separate from tools like Google Analytics and provides a different type of information. It's a little bit more raw. In fact, usually you can directly access the log files here. And sometimes when you run into issues, and one of the things you'll do as developers over time is you'll step in and you try to fix people's problems, is you'll end up coming and looking at the error logs and just the raw data that's being dropped out by the web server, who's logging in, what IP address it's coming from, what's failing, what's working, what's not loading, what is loading, how fast it's loading, all that kind of stuff. Time of day, country of visit, length of visit, all sorts of really interesting information. All right. Then some of the other tools here, some that are more security focused. So like if you wanted to turn on secure socket layers, you could. If you want to block certain IP addresses, like Tom's, from hitting your machine, you could. Sorry, I had to do it, Tom. You already did a denial of service attack before we even launched. And then of course...
That was me, actually, because I was trying to change stuff on the site while you were in it. So.
Oh.
You can't block me.
We can try. Command line access, that's what SSH is. You can also go in and configure your PHP. So for example, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but PHP as a server-side language isn't something you just load and leave.
Right.
It actually has a bunch of different settings within it that allows for certain things to be enabled and disabled. And most often what you'll come in here and change is something like your max upload limit. Like if you're trying to upload like large photographs and you discover that my photograph's 5 megs but it's only allowing a 2 meg upload, and you realize that that's the default for PHP. So you can come in here and change those things. You can also, depending on the version of the content management system that you're running, or perhaps you've developed a different application. You can actually come in here and select which PHP version is actually active on your site, and that can have a big impact on how your software performs. So like if you have a piece of software that was written for PHP 5, but we're running PHP 7, some things might not work as you anticipate, so that you make changes. All right, so then get into the advanced area here where you can actually do some more complicated things, more high-level admin things, so you can set up cron jobs. Cron jobs are just simply things that run on a timer. So you might have a cron job that does a backup or deletes log files or updates things or whatever. You know, you can set up all sorts of things. And then there's a few different little settings at the bottom that you can tweak as well. One thing that you can do is set up multiple users for cPanel, so you don't have to give everybody the same level of access. So you could create a user that would have access to maybe the database and the files, but doesn't have access to the email accounts or command line access, so you can control those things. So that's the quick preview. On the left-hand side here, you'll often see a little bit of like statistics going on. You can see, for example, the domain name, the directory on the machine that we're sitting on. And it's really an important kind of distinction here to understand that the type of hosting we purchase right now is called shared hosting, meaning that this website is loaded on a machine with other websites. So there's one server and it might be running 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 websites. It's not unusual. Why? Because most websites really don't get that much traffic. If you start getting a lot of traffic, chances are the host will contact you and say, we're going to migrate you to a different machine because you're getting a lot of traffic. And in the old days, that would also use that as a reason to charge you more money because you would actually have bandwidth limits. So like, for example, a usual like bandwidth limit used to be like 30 gigs of traffic. And if you exceeded 30 gigs of traffic going through your site, just like on your cell phone, then all of a sudden they're going to charge you. And that's when it starts to get pricey, right? Because then you're really utilizing the equipment, you're really utilizing the network, and if there's money to be made, we'll try to make it. All right. It also shows you CPU usage, stuff that's going on, how much memory we're using, all of which is pretty interesting. All right, let's go ahead and do the WordPress install. So I'm just going to click on WordPress. And it tells us about WordPress, what it is, what version will be installed, right? All WordPress installations do require a database. So it's automatically going to create a MySQL database, automatically set up all the passwords and everything for it, and in a very secure fashion. And really this is pretty much like a one or two click kind of install. There's not really much to it. They have scripts in the background that do all the stuff that you would like have to do manually, like the stuff I detailed in this folder. If you want to learn how to do WordPress, you'd watch my videos and read all this stuff and take all the commands and edit files and upload them and download them and change permissions and all this stuff to get it to work. That's the traditional install procedure, which is for WordPress is actually pretty simplistic, even the manual approach. But the fact that we have the ability to just simply come in here and click this button and install the application, that's a wonderful thing.
So is this like is it pretty much a LAMP just out the gate then? PHP, my admin will probably be...
It is. We were just looking at that in the control panel. So we got economy Linux hosting. We didn't get the Windows-based hosting. And that typically is some sort of Linux operating system. I'm not sure what it is. We could probably figure it out if we looked. The Apache web server, that's the server that dishes out the web pages. MySQL, or sometimes the Maria database, a lot of people are using these days. And on this system we do see that it's MySQL, and then P, which stands for PHP, and that's what we call the LAMP architecture. And that LAMP architecture is really what runs probably like 90% of the web. It really does. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, LAMP. if you've never heard that acronym. Now, I'm finding it interesting here, and this is, I think, kind of a new feature that I'm seeing on a lot of the hosts now, is notice how we can install the application or we can import an existing install. So if we were doing our development work on the school servers, we might be able to come here, drop in the usernames and passwords, and get the whole thing imported. The database, the file structure, theme, all of it. That's kind of fun. All right, let's go ahead and click install. And now we're going to be putting in some information. You can see location we're going to leave as default. See if there's an option here. Do we want the www or do we want romanbathsoaps.com?
I say go romanbathsoaps.com.
That would be my suggestion as well.
Do we want HTTP or HTTPS?
Well, what?
You want HTTPS if you're doing e-commerce.
We do, but here's a catch. You know what the catch is?
What?
It's easier to develop on HTTP.
Well, that's not what I was thinking. It's that you have to pay for SSL service. That's the catch. So we can always switch it once we actually are processing. Now, we are going to look at payment processing techniques when we do the e-commerce components that will shuffle off that secure socket layer stuff to other systems initially. That'll be my recommendation. If you choose to do it a different way and want to incur the cost, then that will be up to you. The reason you would want to use a HTTPS and pay for SSL service is because you would be processing the credit cards through your website.
Exactly.
And then the payment gateways that you would use would not allow you to function in any other fashion. That's part of
a plugin for WordPress, though, for their e-commerce, they might have something built in for
That is correct.
as well.
And that,
Yeah, that's true. They should have SSL.
yeah. And there's many different schemes for doing it. So initially, I'm just going to choose romanbathsoaps.com. We're going to stay in the root directory, so I'm not going to give it a secondary directory. They recommend the latest version, and I agree with that choice. We accept the license agreement. And now we got a couple of choices to make here, and I want to be really careful about these too. Notice that there's automatic updating enabled here. Now, I have a little bit of an issue with that because I have worked on WordPress installations where updates were allowed automatically, and then they don't coexist well with other things that you add to the site. So for the development process, my recommendation is that we switch it to do not update automatically, and then in the aftermath you can do the updates manually, right? Or if you want to switch it to automatic, go for it, but I'm always really cautious, especially when we start to do complicated things on a website. You want to be really, really careful, because I've seen entire sites go down as a result of it. So I'm going to choose do not. Don't. Okay, plugins especially. Themes. All right. I like the automatic update of backup, even though we're not choosing to do that anyhow. All right. So now here we are going to have an administrator username and password. What I'm going to have you do once again, Aaron, now this is a separate one. This is for WordPress. So one for domain name and hosting, one for cPanel, one for WordPress. And then if you have a database one, that should be different. If you have an FTP one, that should be different. You have email ones, those should be different. That's how you have security, folks. All right, so I'm going to let you come on up and do that. Now, the username that you're going to use here for WordPress is probably going to be shared with your project team. So keep that in mind. Although when you get inside of WordPress, you will have the capability to create sub-user accounts for WordPress, so each with different access capabilities. So we're letting her go ahead and do this. And then I would suggest real strongly, you guys already have an email account for the business, right? That you use that one for your admin email, at least for now. Because that will allow for you to do password resets just in case. And yeah, you can put that in right now. And we'll leave the tagline, whatever it is. We're not going to run a multi-site. We're not going to do multiple WordPresses. All right. So now we have another option here at the bottom where it says settings for database management, email notification, default backup location, and automatic backup. Now, I'm actually going to recommend that she chooses the automatic settings for this. The one that's really most pertinent to us are what the database username and password are, just in case. However, there are ways we can get that information in the aftermath, and I'm fine with all the automatic settings here. If it was me personally, I would probably choose the manual approach, but that will increase the amount of time that we stay here in class tonight, considering class is technically over. So I'm going to go ahead and click install. And it is processing. All right, and it's got a nice little progress chart here. If you guys have ever done a WordPress install manually or automatically, ta-da! Says it's all set to go. I don't know if it is, but you know the way to find out?
It's live.
It's live. That's somebody just said. So I'm just going to do a right click, new tab, and there's our new website. Yay! All right, folks, that concludes this video. We went through the whole process of selecting a domain name, buying the domain name and the hosting, looking at cPanel, some of the options and stuff in there, and then actually doing a WordPress install. You can see why it's a nice, quick process. So now the team that's responsible for building the site already has a starter theme in place. Not that you have to use this theme. And then that's some of the stuff that we'll start looking at next week. But we already have a site up and running, believe it or not. It was just that simple. Now it's just a matter of making it do what we need it to do. And that's in the upcoming weeks.